Hi everyone, welcome to Stories to Lead. I am so excited today to have with me Gigi Gilliard, who is an anti-racism champion. She's a diversity, equity, inclusion and belonging practitioner, and she's the author of The Loud Brown Round Girl. Gigi, thank you so much for being here, and tell me your story.
Oh, you're very welcome, Suzanne. And I'm just going to tell our friends who are watching exactly what I just said to you, that since dropping this book and since doing all this facilitating here in the States around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, I've done a ton of these interviews. And sometimes they go well, sometimes they don't go well. Sometimes I feel like I connect with the interviewer, oftentimes I don't. I was so excited to be here with you today because you really make me feel safe, right? From the time that we, had opportunity to work together a little bit some years ago to just our chats over the last couple of weeks, I just feel safe with you. So I just wanted to tell you that. I wanted to start with that.
Thank you so
Um, eh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. And, thank you for introducing me and, saying all those things. I'm an anti-racism champion and all that. I guess those are the words that I've written on LinkedIn, I suppose. Because quite frankly, I'm the chief cook and bottle washer, right? That's really what I am, chief cook and bottle washer. And, and I've come to understand that in many ways means servant, right? It means servant and kind of caretaker, which is a large part of my story. So I do all of those things that you mentioned, but I also lead a small consultancy here based in New York City that focuses on learning and development and leadership development with a niche specialty in diversity and anti-racism. And while in my career, I've certainly helped organizations globally as it relates to racism and as it relates to inclusion. As you might imagine, here in the States, the need for a practitioner like myself in this space has been paramount and overwhelming, right? Just overwhelming. And how I got here is a story in and of itself. I don't know that, I woke up one day when I was about to graduate from college and I said, yes, I'm going to fight racism in my life. That's my plan, right? That was definitely not on my mind necessarily. At some point early after school, I did know that I wanted to get involved in learning and development. That I knew. I wanted to be in that space where I could help organizations from a training perspective. And so soon after college, I guess I became a corporate trainer. That was the title that I had. In our past, when you and I met before, that's what I was doing. I was doing corporate training. And I was a true corporate trainer in that, most corporate trainers, and I'm generalizing here, we spend a lot of time on the road, right? We spend a lot of time in hotels and on planes and, running around the country, running around the world, talking to different organizations. And I did that for many years and loved it, right? And loved it. Just getting to know different people, getting to know how organizations worked. But more and more, what became very obvious, especially here in the States, is that organizations wanted to talk about diversity and inclusion. And they wanted to be able to talk about it in a training setting, in a sort of conversation style, where they were able to bring in leaders into a room or managers or even individual contributors and talk about whether or not their organizations felt like they were getting inclusion right. And I, just in my travels and just in my sort of clinical expertise, began leading those conversations, literally hundreds and hundreds of conversations around diversity, around equity, around inclusion, and whether or not people felt like they belonged. So a couple of years ago, I decided to write my own point of view around how to have these conversations. What was the best way to go into an organization and talk about this work? What was the best way to help leaders, to help managers, to help individual contributors think about inclusion, be anti-racist at work and in their lives? And one of the things that I found in that point of view was that this concept of belonging, helping people to feel like they belong, adding the concept of belonging to the conversation was really important. It was really important, and not only important from an American perspective, it was something that was missing, right? We wanted to talk about these hard things like racism and discrimination and all of these, isms and phobias. But we found that many folks in the organizations that we were working with, they didn't feel like they belonged to begin with, like on their teams or in their groups or in their organizations. So that became my specialty, to really figure out, what does it mean to talk about belonging in the workplace? What does it mean to talk about belonging in our relationships? And how do we get here? Like, how do we get to a place where we don't belong? Like, what in the world? Like, what was missing? And one of the things that I realized was not so much missing, but one of the things that I realized that we do as humans, as we're getting to know people who are different than ourselves, as we're thinking about differences between us, is that we make a lot of assumptions, right? We assume things about people who are different than we are, right? I've assumed things about my friends who live across the pond, right? Until I spent a lot of time in the UK or in Switzerland, or just things that I didn't know. And I realized that from, this perspective of race, here in this country, I have a lot of white friends who assume things about Black people, and Black people who assume things about white people, and the like. And so the Loud Brown Round Girl, when I wrote that book, or when I came up with the idea for it, the subtitle is to reject assumptions that do not define me. It became my life's mission to say, hang on, everybody, let's stop assuming about each other. And how about we all start with Gigi? Stop assuming about me. I'm going to tell you exactly who I am. And a large part of that is really sort of where I am now. And who I am is somebody who's made a decision to lead in this space. And to be a leader in this space meant putting together this consultancy here in the city. I have a team of 7 other amazing humans who do this work with me every day. And, really make an impact. It's not about sort of impressing organizations with how much we know about critical race theory or, how to have these conversations, but it is about making an impact where people can make some lasting changes. So that's my story in terms of just sort of my career and all that. The word that I started out sharing was this word servant, right? I very much believe that the universe has asked, or God, I believe in God, that God has asked me to serve in this way, right? Can you talk about belonging as it relates to difference and racism and how we've done a crappy job at that? And by the way, can you have these conversations in the workplace? And can you write a book? And can you take care of your 80-year-old mother at the same time? Thanks. Signed, God. Right? So here I am.
There's a lot there, Gigi.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in understanding how you went from being, you were a corporate trainer, you were having these conversations, and now suddenly you're CEO of your own consultancy. You are now a leader. You're leading these other 7 people in your organization. There's so many. I've got so many questions about that.
Yes, sure.
Was there a defining moment when you started to say, actually, this is about me now. I'm gonna set up my own consultancy. I need to move away from working for others, or tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. That is a great question. So it was really less about sort of like, well, I'm going to go do my own thing, because this was never my intention, right? As I worked as a consultant, I had been a consultant since 2009. So I've been a consultant for, sort of just an individual sole proprietor on my own, working as a facilitator, an external facilitator for a long time. I think what the defining moment was, though, was when I realized that in my craft, in the craft of corporate training, I was hearing from the people, this content that you're sharing with us doesn't get it right. It's not landing, right? Thanks for sharing these very pretty slides, but this is not what we need. And so I got to a point where I shut the computer off and I just started talking to people. And I started asking the questions, well, what is it that you need? What is it that's missing? What's wrong? What's wrong? And then at that time, when I started having conversations with a number of organizations that I was partnered with at the time, who were stellar organizations, stellar in terms of the work that they did, But I realized that we weren't connecting on what I was hearing from the people. And that was paramount to me. What was paramount to me was we've really got to respond to the people, right? In terms of what it is that they need. We've got to meet the need. We can come up with all of these solutions and, all of the leadership and learning and development speak we want. But if we're not giving the people what they need, we're not being successful. And I felt like I was failing. I felt like I was failing as a corporate trainer. So when I stepped away from working with other organizations, and I was still a sole proprietor, working as an external consultant, but attached to these organizations. And when I wrote my own point of view, I asked myself, I was like, well, what do you think is wrong, Gigi? What is wrong? What have you seen? And then I started writing, right? And, I'm a sociologist, if you will, by trade. And I started just putting together some research. I started doing a lot of reading on my own. And once I wrote that point of view, and once I realized, okay, I get it. Here's how we need to go about having the conversation around race, around difference, around equity. And we haven't been doing this before. I'm going to start doing it. I'm going to do it. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to write my own content, which I did. I wrote a coaching model. I wrote my own coaching model. And I said, I've been doing this work for years. I don't need to consult with anybody else. Like I am the beta test, if you will. I've been out there doing it. Let me put it into practice. And then as we started to share with organizations this coaching model and talk to them about what my offerings were, I then realized, oh, I can't do this by myself. I need some assistance. Oh, I need quite a bit of assistance, apparently. And so our team grew from there. But it was really a response to the need. And, one last thing I'll say about it, one thing that I like to tell people is, particularly, again, in the States, because of so much of what we've seen in the news with the death of Breonna Taylor, with the death of Mr. Aubrey, with the death of Mr. Floyd, so much of what has been happening in the States over the last year and a half, it does feel like there's this meeting of the moment, right? Like I need to meet the moment. And the work that I'm doing feels like that, but I wanted it to be far more lasting. I wanted the change that organizations and humans and our clients, the change that they do and the change that they put into place, I wanted that to be much more sustainable and much more lasting. And I thought, this is going to take a lot more of my focus. And I need to really, be a grown-up about this and, get a team and lead. So that's how we got here. That's how this happened.
That's an incredible decision to make, isn't it? To actually admit, okay, I need some help here. I'm going forward and I'm going to be the leader. How would you describe your leadership style?
Sure. This question is probably better suited for my team, right? they would tell you, they would say the truth.
I'll get them in the next episode. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So I think my leadership style is, this is not going to be very clinical, but it's probably that of cool big sister, right? Cool big sister, like your big sister who loves you. Like you're probably not going to find another big sister who believes in you as much as I do, right? So one of the very first things that I decided that if I was going to surround myself with a team of people, they were going to be people that I believed in, right? And that doesn't mean that they are where they want to be in their career or where they want to be even in their peak performance, but I could see where they could go. And that's Gigi the coach, right? So Gigi the executive coach, I can see into sort of people's future and their vision and where they want to be. So that's the very first thing. I 100% believe in these folks. And I spend a lot of time making every effort to pour courage into them. So I have a leadership style that does a lot of acknowledging and do a lot of, encouraging, lifting up the team, telling them a lot of what I see that we do right, that they do right, and how they get it right. And then I am that big sister who loves you, right? But if you're going to be a pain in the ass, I'm going to tell you. Okay. Right? And I'm going to tell you straight away. And so it's sort of this style that is, filled with a lot of, I hope a lot of love, a lot of encouragement, a lot of acknowledging people, but also a lot of radical candor, right? A lot of radical candor where, I don't waste a lot of time to be honest about things that need to change or things that I'm unhappy with. I really do believe in the concept of giving feedback in ways that are often where people hear feedback. So it's not like at your, annual review time, but like as we grab a coffee or as we're getting on Zoom in these COVID times, I bring things up. I try to bring things up as quickly as I can so we can just focus on the work. So my leadership style, I think, is, and I think the word I want to say is, I'm a family leader, right? Like I love the idea of creating family where this work that we do, I should say this work that we do is daunting, right? Is daunting and it's emotionally taxing, right? It takes a lot out of you to talk about racism and otherism in the world all day long and to work with organizations who are struggling with this. And so I'm very cognizant of the emotional weight that's on the team and the things that the projects that we work on. So in that way, when we come together, I want it to feel like a haven. I want it to feel like we're family here. But in every good family, right, there's going to be a lot of love and some truth telling, right? Some truth telling. But in those families that are functional, that are not dysfunctional. So I think a family leadership style, right, if you will. I don't know if that's a clinical term, but I think that's the type of leader I am.
I love that. I love the idea of the big sister as well, the radical candor. And Gigi, I've got so many questions, so many questions to ask you, and we are getting to the end of the interview. Maybe we need to have a part 2 for this as well. I wanted to ask you about advice that you would give to your younger self.
Yeah, I love that. Excuse me. I would tell my younger self to calm down. Calm down, right? And let me tell you what I mean by that. Like, as a younger woman, because it did take me a while to figure out this path. And if I'm honest, like, I happened upon it, right? I started out in learning and development very traditionally, right out of school, and I worked sort of on these HR teams, and then that moved into me becoming my own consultant and doing corporate training. And that led to me being solid in that field as a corporate trainer, but focusing on diversity, which eventually in some years led me here. And there is a confidence that I have now because I absolutely, positively, unequivocally believe that I'm right where I'm supposed to be. At this time in my life, with this work, with these folks, with this focus. I 100% believe that. And this feeling of doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing is, I think, the thing that I have yearned for even as a teenage girl, right? Or even as a college girl. Like, what am I going to do? I don't know what I'm supposed to do in the world. And I wish I could go back and tell that young Gigi, calm down. Just do what you know to do. Play to your strengths. Find your strengths. Find your strengths. And then give the world your strengths. I think that's what I would tell her. Give the world your strengths. Because in so doing, in so giving the world your strengths, it is about to become crystal clear what you're here to do. So you're fine. Relax. He didn't love you anyway, so the fact that he left you for this other girl, it doesn't matter, right? Calm down. There'll be another one. You'll get over this heartbreak also. Yeah. But this thing that I was looking for as a young person was coming, right? This, you know how we say often, just feeling good in our skin. And that's not every day and that's not all the time, but I think that I feel so much more confident in my skin and who I am now because I'm so clear about what I'm here to do. And so I wish I knew that many years ago.
I think that is a wonderful piece of advice, Gigi. And on that, we need to end the interview. But who knows? We might have to do part two. This is
Okay, that'd be
too
great.
big just to stick to one episode, I feel. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you, Suzanne. It was great to be with you today.
Bye.